Okay, I need you to do something for me. Close your eyes for a second and picture $1 million. Now open them. How do you feel? Lighter? Heavier? Richer? Confused? We toss around words like million, billion, trillion every day. News anchors say them like they're cereal brands. Politicians promise to spend them. CEOs announce quarterly profits measured in them. But if you ask someone on the street to show you what $1 billion feels like, most people would shrug. Today we're going to fix that. We're going to walk, step by step, from the dollar in your pocket all the way to the absurd, the sextillion, and we'll use real-world comparisons that stick. By the end of this video, you'll not only know the numbers, you'll feel them. You'll also get practical ways to use scale to make smarter money moves. Sound good? Let's go. Part 1. $1 to $1,000. Real money for real lives. Let's be concrete. A single dollar. A coffee. A minute of streaming. It's tiny, but tiny matters. $1. The atomic unit. You can buy a song download, if those still exist where you live, a piece of gum, maybe half a snack. $20. The classic casual bill. Lunch. Taxi tip. A small but meaningful utility bill payment. $100. Big enough to feel serious. It's usually a "save this," or "only for an emergency" number. If you keep one $100 bill in your wallet and lose it, you'll feel it differently than losing your phone charger. $1,000, the milestone. In many personal finance plans, this is where emergency funds start. If something breaks, a car repair, a medical bill, $1,000 absorbs the shock. Historically, $1,000 once bought a lot more. For many families in different eras, $1,000 could buy a used car or cover a rent deposit for months. Today it covers a down payment on a used bike, maybe 1 month's rent in some cities, or one decent medical bill. The point: $1,000 is still a big deal for most people. Stacking $1,000 in $100 bills is 10 bills, not a huge bundle. Weight? Practically nothing. Height? Tiny. So small that psychologically it still feels attainable. That's why personal finance starts here. Part 2. $1 million. The mythical milestone. Okay, now the good stuff. $1 million. The phrase is loaded with retirement fantasies, beachfront homes, and interviews with people who say, "I saved every penny." But what is $1 million, practically? First, time. 1 million seconds is 1 million seconds. How long is that in days? Let's calculate. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. That makes 86,400 seconds per day. 1 million divided 86,400 makes 11.574 days. So 1 million seconds is roughly 11.6 days. That's not scary, it's a weekend and a half. That smallness is why humans underestimate the jump between millions and billions. 1 million seconds is still a human scale span. Now, physical cash. Imagine $1 million in $100 bills. Each $100 bill is one piece of paper. To get $1 million, you need 10,000 bills. If each bill is about 0.11 millimeters thick, that's roughly right, the stack would be around 1.1 meters tall, about the height of a person's chest. Not mountainous. Weight? Bills weigh about 1 gram each, so 10,000 bills weigh 10 kilograms. A big backpack. You could carry your million if you needed to. What $1 million buys in practical terms, and why location matters. In some rural or small city markets, $1 million can buy a comfortable house and still leave cash for investments. In big coastal cities, $1 million might buy a modest apartment and be swallowed by housing costs. Invested wisely over time, $1 million can produce enough passive income for a reasonable lifestyle, but not always the retire at 35 feet fantasy. It depends on spending rate and cost of living. Important perspective. The median household income in many developed countries means it can take a single household decades to accumulate $1 million through earnings alone. Companies and governments can make $1 million in minutes. That's scale, and when you see it, you understand why headlines can be misleading. Part 3. $1 billion. A different financial species. Here's where people trip up. A billion is not just a million with more zeros. It is on a different order of magnitude. Time translation again. 1 billion second equals 1 billion seconds. Divide by 86,400 equals about 11,574 days, which equals 31.688 years. So a billion seconds is roughly 31.7 years. Put another way, if you started counting every second of your life, it would take over 3 decades to reach 1 billion. Physical cash. $1 billion in $100 bills requires 10 million bills, because 1 billion divided by 100 equals 10 million. At 1 gram per bill, that's 10 million grams equals 10,000 kilograms equals 10 metric tons. 10 metric tons is the weight of a small delivery truck. Not trivial. A relatable image. If $1 million was a chest-high stack of $100 bills, $1 billion is a pile that weighs as much as a small delivery truck. That's the jump. Why billionaires are different. When someone's net worth moves by billions in a single day, because of stock market swings, that's liquidity and scale in action. For a large company, $1 billion profit can be a quarter's result. For a national budget, $1 billion can be a small program. For you, $1 billion is almost unfathomable. Examples: non-time sensitive. Some large companies and sovereign funds move billions around as business as usual. Charitable gifts of billions. Fund endowments, research institutes, or large-scale infrastructure. The funds are real but require management, not just handing out checks at the door. Personal finance takeaway. For individual budgeting, think in percentages. If you earn $75,000 per year, $10,000 is approximately 13% of your income. For a billionaire, $10,000 is a rounding error. That difference in perception drives policy, lobbying, and investment choices. Part 4. $1 trillion. Nation-sized money. Now we step into the realm of governments and global markets. A trillion is 1,000 billions. That is not an exaggeration, it's 1,000 times bigger. Seconds. 1 trillion seconds is 1 trillion seconds. Divide by 86,400 and you get about 11,574,074 days, which is 31,688 years. Yes, 31,000 years. That is longer than recorded history, beyond the Bronze Age, almost back to the last ice age in human terms. So 1 trillion seconds is deeply geological. Physical cash. $1 trillion in $100 bills is 10 billion bills, because 1 trillion 100ths equals 10 billion. At 1 gram per bill, that's 10 billion grams, or 10 million kilograms, 10,000 metric tons. That's the weight of a small cargo ship's many containers? It's huge. Another physical analogy. Stacking height. If $1 million stacked to about 1.1 meters, $1 billion stacks to 1.1 kilometers, and $1 trillion stacks to 1,100 kilometers. That stack would go well into space, comfortably beyond commercial airline cruise altitude, and many times the height of Mount Everest. Visualizing money that way is humbling. Where trillions appear. National budgets are in the trillions. The GDP of major economies is often measured in trillions. Multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure programs or stimulus packages are meaningful but still finite on a global scale. Practical thought. When politicians talk about spending or saving trillions, remember, a trillion seconds is 31,688 years. $1 trillion stacked is practically an astronomical monument. The number is big enough that we need to evaluate programs in proportion to GDP and future tax bases, not as mere slogans. Personal finance link. Don't get paralyzed by huge numbers. The few trillion-dollar policy choices filter down into incentives, taxes, interest rates, and therefore into your mortgage or job prospects. But you, making decisions for your household, rarely need to imagine trillions directly. You need to understand how policy at that scale might change your paycheck, tax bracket, or housing costs. Part 5. Beyond trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion. The cosmic scale after trillion. The names keep stacking. Quadrillion, 10 to the power of 15. Quintillion, 10 to the power of 18. Sextillion, 10 to the power of 21. These numbers are astronomically large, literally useful in astronomy, chemistry, and physics more than in everyday economics. Seconds. 1 quadrillion seconds approximately equals 31.7 million years. 1 quintillion seconds approximately equals 31.7 billion years, more than twice the age of the universe. 1 sextillion seconds approximately equals 31.7 trillion years, a time scale that no human or species or planet could meaningfully inhabit. Physical comparisons. The observable universe has on the order of 10 to the power of 22 to 10 to the power of 24 stars depending on the estimate. So when people talk about sextillions, they're often in the same ballpark as counting stars or atoms. Dollars at that scale are mostly mathematical exercises. Grains of sand analogy. People sometimes say, there are sextillions of grains of sand on Earth. If you gave $1 for every grain of sand, you'd have more dollars than any human could spend in many universes. Why economics stops at this scale? Our global economy is enormous but finite. World wealth and GDP are measured in the hundreds of trillions at most, far short of quadrillion or quintillion. Once you reach quadrillions and beyond, you're usually dealing with notional values, like derivatives in finance, which are contracts referencing underlying values, or with counts of particles in physics. One useful rule. If you encounter quadrillions or more in a financial headline, pause. Ask, is this a sum of notional contracts? Is it a scientific count? Is it hyperbole? Often, those numbers are not directly transferable to household budgets. Part 6. Visualizing money. Stacks, trucks, time and people. I promised visuals you can feel. Let's pack a few in. Stack height of $100 bills. $1 million in $100s, right pointing arrow about 1.1 meters tall. $1 billion right pointing arrow about 1.1 kilometers tall. $1 trillion right pointing arrow about 1,100 kilometers tall. That scaling makes the decimal jump obvious. Every 1,000-fold increase multiplies the stack height by 1,000. A million is human scale. A billion is geographic. A trillion is planetary, astronomical in altitude. Weight examples. $1 million in $100s weighs approximately 10 kilograms, carryable. $1 billion weighs approximately 10,000 kilograms, about the payload of a medium truck. $1 trillion weighs approximately 10 million kilograms, orders of magnitude heavier, industrial scale. Time analogies recap. 1 million seconds right pointing arrow approximately 11.6 days. 1 billion seconds right pointing arrow approximately 31.7 years. 1 trillion seconds right pointing arrow approximately 31,688 years. These aren't arbitrary, they give scale to headlines. If a politician promises to save $1 trillion, translate that into something proportional to GDP and ask what it means in per-person terms. If a billionaire donates $1 billion, ask what percentage of their net worth it is. Scale helps you see the real meaning, not just the rhetorical flash. Part 7. Why scale matters for personal finance. Okay, so we can imagine sextillions and stacks reaching into space. Why should you care? 3 clear answers. 1. Relative versus absolute. A dollar is absolute, but its impact is relative. $10,000 matters to you in a way it doesn't to Apple. Always think, what percent of my income, net worth, expenses is this? 2. Policy and macro effects. Big numbers, deficits, stimulus, central bank balance sheets, influence interest rates, inflation, currency strength. Those do affect mortgages, savings, and investments. You don't budget in trillions, but trillions shape whether your mortgage rate rises or falls. 3. Decision framing. When companies or governments make promises in billions, ask, compared to what? E.g., a $10 billion investment might sound huge, but if it's spread over a decade and the economy is measured in tens of trillions, it's actually modest. Practical rules of thumb. If an amount is less than 1% of your annual income, it can be treated as a small shock, generally. If it's more than 10%, act carefully. When comparing savings vehicles, think in percentages and time frames, not absolute large numbers. A 1% return on $100,000 is $1,000 a year. This is tangible. For Apple, 1% on $100 billion is $1 billion. The percent perspective keeps you grounded. Part 8. Concrete exercises. Applying scale to your life. Let's do 3 short exercises you can use when hearing big number headlines. Exercise A. Convert to per person dollars. If the government says it will spend $100 billion on a program, divide by population. For a country of 100 million people, that's $1,000 per person. That makes the promise personal. Exercise B. Convert to years of income. If a company posts $5 billion profit, divide by the median household income, say $50,000, to see how many household years that equals. $5 billion divided by $50,000 equals 100,000 household years. That's 100,000 families' entire annual income. Exercise C. Convert to stack height or seconds. For fun, if someone quips, "We printed $1 trillion, run the mental seconds test." That's 31,688 years of seconds. It's a mental shortcut to check your emotional reaction. If you're suddenly outraged or ecstatic, translate the number first. These aren't perfect, but they anchor emotion in math. Part 9. Stories and AMP. Illustrations, quick vignettes that make scale sticky. If you had $1 million in $100 bills and spent $1,000 a day, nice lifestyle, you'd go through it in 1,000 days, under 3 years. If you tried the same with $1 billion at $1,000 a day, that's 1 million days, 2,740 years. There's the real difference between living off $1 million and having billionaire money. It's not just bigger, it erases lifetime constraints. If you saved $10 a week and compounded at 6% annually, you'd have about $10,000 after approximately 16 years, rough ballpark. That's the power of consistent, small actions, the scale you can control versus trillions you cannot. If you gave away $1,000 every day, after 1 year you'd have donated $365,000. It sounds generous. If you gave away $1,000 every day for 1,000 years, you'd still only give $365 million, which is less than many large philanthropic funds manage annually. Scale crushes intuition. Part 10. Policy, ethics, and scale. Large numbers also raise ethical boxes. When a government borrows trillions, younger generations may shoulder repayment through taxes or inflation. When a billionaire's wealth increases by tens of billions, debate follows about tax policy or civic responsibility. The key here again is proportion and transparency. Ask for percentages, timeframes, auditability. Big numbers without breakdowns are rhetorical weapons. They make people cheer or panic without clarity. Part 11. How to talk about big numbers if you want to sound smarter on a podcast. Here are phrases that help. Replace raw billions with per person or per household numbers. Ask for a time frame. Is this $10 billion over a year, a decade, or a century? Translate to percentages of GDP, or as a percentage of the party in question's budget. Use seconds or stat metaphors to anchor the imagination. Example. Don't say, the program costs $100 billion. Say, that's about $1,000 per person. If the country has 100 million residents, now people know what you mean. Part 12. Quick recap and AMP. Practical takeaways. Let's close with a short cheat sheet. 1 million seconds approximately equals 11.6 days. Think, a couple of weekends. 1 billion seconds approximately equals 31.7 years. Think, an adult lifetime. 1 trillion seconds approximately equals 31,688 years. Think, prehistory to post-history. $1 million in $100s approximately equals 1.1 meters tall. $1 billion approximately equals 1.1 kilometers. $1 trillion approximately equals 1,100 kilometers. And the personal finance rules. Convert big numbers into per person or percent terms to make them meaningful. Think in time frames. How long, or how many household years, does this buy? For household decisions, small consistent savings beat emotional reactions to big headlines. If your brain is a little stretched, congratulations. That's the point. Big numbers should stretch your brain. They should make you curious, skeptical, and precise. If you found this useful, hit like. Subscribe to Personal Finance Time for more breakdowns that actually explain what the headlines mean for your wallet, and leave a comment. Which number would you like us to visualize next? Dollars per human? Time to retire on a given nest egg? Or maybe how your country's budget translates into school lunches? Thanks for watching. Keep thinking in percentages, in time, and in real-world analogies. And next time someone says, we'll spend billions, you'll smile and ask, per person, or per century. See you in the next one.